Namaste, world raisers. So yeah, I'm back in the park real quick with another video because I got an incredible comment yesterday on one of my videos that basically says, don't expect all Indians to be spiritual. You know very well we are living in the Kali Yuga, the age of demons, right? So I want to stipulate not just Indians, but Hindus in particular. So I want my audience to be, Hindus for the time being, because that's, for me, that's where the potentiality lies. And I'm including all of Sanatan Dharma. And we know that there's some religions within India that aren't of the dharmic origin. So I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to the dharmic religions, right? So Hinduism, I'm just going to label it that. Sanatan Dharmis, right? The ones who believe that the world is one family, right? But at the same time, yeah, he goes on to say, the age of demons, India that you see today is not the real India. Real India is highly advanced, both science and spirituality. So yes, of course, I know that very well, and that's what I'm excited about, right? So brutal invasion of British and Islamic countries led to genocide of culture and religion of this nation. They divided us into castes, and now it's deep-rooted in older generation people. But yeah, India is rising both economically as well as spiritually, all thanks to BJP, a Hindu party that wants the revival of Hindu culture in India. So yeah, so that's the ticket. That's the goal, right? A revival of pure spirituality. But it doesn't come about without the people participating. So in particular, the young men, the young Hindu men in society, those are the ones that can transform not just India, but the whole world. Like, think about it. They got the numbers, they got access now to the highest spiritual teachings. And I'm talking about, yeah, very accessible. Everybody knows about them, but to really dive into those teachings and to really set that intention, like I did many, many years ago. I think I was 24 when I started my spiritual journey. So a long time ago, due to suffering, tragedy once again, back then, yeah, led me on the initial stages of my journey. And then I devoted myself. I surrendered. I want to know the highest spiritual teachings, and eventually led me down the path of exploring, quite a bit. And it's multifaceted, but ultimately, the highest spiritual truths found within, religion, spiritual traditions per se, is Hinduism, right? So the yogas, and then of course the scriptures. Got the Bhagavad Gita, of course, all the other Gitas. We got the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, and if you dig into the spiritual teachings within those, and then you got the Upanishads, right? These calibrate when we're talking about the levels of consciousness, and I hope you guys go and explore that. Just look up Dr. David R. Hawkins, the calibrated levels of consciousness, and then you'll see a chart comes up, right? And then have a look at that and then analyze it and be like, okay, where am I on there? Because we all have to take individual responsibility for our own spiritual evolution, right? And then it's not easy. Sometimes you're going to get trapped and you're going to get stuck because we got blind spots that we don't really see, and we think that we're being so spiritual when really our behavior, is not so much, right? So yeah, in relationships in particular, they're very difficult to navigate. So the secret sauce there is, yeah, you enter into a relationship, things are going to evolve and progress as you get out of the lovey-dovey stage. And then things are going to happen. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be triggers. So it's up to the men in general to lead that relationship and maintain their masculine presence. And it doesn't mean, overly dominant, but you can't let yourself be walked over. So if any instances, if that's happening, then you really got to reflect and be like, oh, I got some work to do, because nobody should be disrespecting anybody at any time in this world. And if we were collectively, everybody was vibrating at a higher level, above integrity, consistently, up into, the levels of love and acceptance, then there's no disrespect happening there. Everybody is very much, one family, peaceful. Everybody's offering service to others, helping each other out, being there for each other. So yeah, so that's the big thing. So how to transform India is the people, right? The younger generation. And I think it's happening. Like, you can see it. And then we're entering into the second phase of the initial phase of the Kali Yuga, right? So the Kali Yuga is, the dark times began, I believe, when Krishna left after the Mahabharata, and then that was the signal of the beginning of the dark times, right? And a lot of people online are talking about the Kali Yuga is all of a sudden over. And I think what they're referring to is that the dark times of the initial 5,000 years, because that's when it really starts to get dark, and we can see it. We're entering into, chaos worldwide. But what comes about of chaos? So you have destruction, chaos, and then there's got to be rebirth, right? Because also within the scriptures, they're talking about a golden age at the beginning of the Kali Yuga. And they even talk about it in Buddhism. That's when I first came across it. And I even looked into Hinduism. Yeah, it's there as well in some of the scriptures and, various sects and traditions. It's talking about it. I don't know which ones in particular, but it's easy to just research it and then you'll see, right? So, yeah, the golden age is for a 5,000 period, and then initially they were saying like 10,000 is the thing, because within that we have access to all of the teachings, all of the scriptures, all of the traditions, and it's been, devastated, and that's due to, in India in particular, all of the invasions, and a lot of that was lost, but not everything, right? Of course. So we still have access to, the greatest spiritual teachings, and then to really dive into that and access it is what brings about the golden age, right? So that's what I'm always talking about. You raise your level of consciousness, it raises the world. And just by doing it for yourself, you're doing it for others, right? So for me, I set the intention early on. So a Tibetan Buddhist intention called the Bodhisattva vow, which means I'm seeking enlightenment, as quickly as possible for the sake of all sentient beings, which is selfless, right? You're doing it for others. And then when you set these intentions, your life is going to be, manifesting in a certain way to bring those things about, which means that even though when you're going into the dark times, you got to trust, right? So you have certainty and you have absolute faith and conviction that what's happening is meant to happen, and then you come out of it feeling grateful, because if you didn't have that opportunity to suffer and to see what you need to work on and then actually work on that and overcome it, then you wouldn't rise, as high as you potentially could, right? So it's about, you can't be complacent. Every day, every minute is part of the spiritual journey. So you gotta surrender to the path and set an intention and take advantage, right? Decide what is your course. Do you want to be a bhakti? Do you want to be the best bhakti devotee that you can be? Then you got to set that intention, right? And then choose, a deity, your Ishta Devata, and then devote yourself to that deity, right? If you want to go the route of seeking a guru, that is true too. But in my belief, I believe God is the ultimate guru, and we have access within. So don't get me wrong, I have had many, many teachers and gurus on my journey, but ultimately you gotta trust the teachings, right? So even the Buddha placed the teachings above himself, right? So you got the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, right? So the Buddha, the teacher, the Dharma is the teachings, and then the Sangha is the spiritual community. And then the highest of those is the Dharma, right? The teachings, right? Because without the teachings from the teacher, then we don't have access to transform ourselves from within, as much as possible, because it's still limited. If you don't know the truth of, non-duality, the mind, and how we got to overcome the delusions, and you just go to, an enlightened guru, for example, transformation will come about. But in order to maintain that, you still have to have the wisdom of like, okay, well, what's the practice, right? How do you practice charity, generosity, kindness, service to others? Which is really, yeah, that's the process of transformation right there. So contemplating, meditating, yeah, finding the stillness of the mind. Yeah, when you're ready, when you're ready, you know, a purpose, a calling, a mission will come about, and then you pursue that. So you activate, yeah, the masculine archetypes, the energies within the subconscious. So getting into the king warrior energy, which is very much like karma yoga, right? And then Raja yoga. And then you're manifesting that into your being, and then you can go on your divine path, your divine plan. And then you treat it like, yeah, a game, right? Because remember, this is kind of like a simulation. A lot of people are talking about this is the simulation, this is the matrix, but what does that mean? Like, what is it really? Like, is it more feasible that we're inside of a computer, or are we inside of a consciousness, like a conscious mind? You could say that, well, the computer's creating that consciousness. Well, then who created the computer, right? So we're talking about being within an infinite mind, an infinite field of consciousness that is aware of everything, right? It is within us, it's within ourselves. And that is life itself, right? And we're all part of it. We're all part of that unity. So, so you got to feel it, you got to embrace it, you got to be grateful. Like if you are a young Hindu right now with access, we can't take it for granted. We can't let the opportunity pass us by, right? So you really, really got to embrace it. You got to, you know, follow your intuition, find a teaching that resonates with you. Yeah, so for me, very much when I got into Hinduism is the Bhagavad Gita. In reality, I think that one spiritual text is all you need. It's all you need. You study that and you practice it. And then, of course, insights will come from other sources. And then you surrender, right? So what is your dharma? What is your duty? What is your purpose? What is your mission? Well, that's going to come out through meditation, contemplation, and then finding something to do within India that is, of course, going to benefit others, but you benefit as a result of that. So abundance will flow through you, yeah, to others. And then, but the big thing is to raise your field, right? So not get caught and stuck in the negativity. If it comes up, you work on it, and then you continue to evolve. So anyways, I hope this is helpful. So yeah, any insights, any tidbits, anything else you guys want me to talk about, any comments, let me know what you guys think, because it'll spark my train of thought to continue making these videos. So anyways, thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Remember, raise yourself, raise the world. Peace.